Oh, welcome to the podcast. It's Keenan. It's Monday, December 30th, before the new year. That was my theme music based on the song In the Mood. And this podcast is about my mood. So that's pretty good. And welcome to the end of year version of my podcast, Comedian Behavioral Therapy. Welcome to a podcast from the funniest comedian you know. And I'm here with my green tea in the boudoir alone in Harlem, looking at some brick building across the street. It's quiet. It's peaceful. I don't know why. There's a half a lime on my desk, just cut open, sliced. So I don't know how I'm going to deal with that on my desk, why it was here, and how many days it's been here. This was kind of the year where, as I'm approaching to be 40, where I thought I'd really get closer to making it in comedy. And it's also the year I let myself fall apart. And it's the year through this podcast I'm working to build myself back up. So here we are on the pod where I'm revealing more than I've ever revealed before. I'm trying to be real with everybody. And this podcast is brought to you by the half lime on my desk. Really adds to the sense of freshness that the room has. And it lasts a few days. And what do you do with a half a lime once you've squeezed out the first half anyway? So, and it's kind of, it's a nice tone, a nice green, and then like a light green. So you really have multiple, you have slices. It lets you really, why do you want to divide your day into different, 8 different things you want to do? Just look at the lime, remind you how many things you've got done. So I've checked off to record the podcast. 1, 2, 3. Let's say 10 slices in this lime, and just divide your day up that way. And it could be like a little journal of sorts. This podcast was brought to you by the half lime on my desk. Sorry, I just had to have a little squeeze of that lime in my mouth. So, it's an ASMR podcast by Keenan. That was good. So now we found a purpose for it. So I was on the road, and what's interesting about being on the road, I did comedy in Delaware and Maryland, did some comedy shows where I hosted 3 shows. And one thing that was, oddly enough, is the guy who drove me down, other comedian to do shows with me, was a guy I've known a little bit over the years, didn't know too well. And in another kismet moment, if you follow this podcast, I do continue to have kismet moments. I do continue to have some of the good vibes I'm putting out in the world, or some of the positive thinking you wouldn't know from this podcast. From the first 9 minutes of complaining I did. But I do have a lot of good things coming my way. And so anyway, one of them is Lance Weiss, who also, we get in the car, and by the way, Lance Weiss, great comedian, but we get in the car, and I find out pretty soon enough, after he doesn't shut up for 20 minutes about how he loves his Prius, and the Prius is going to change the world. It's the best thing that ever happened to him, and he saved his whole life, and how it's the best car, and how, it gets the most mileage, and he can do anything with it, and it's enabling him to go on the road, and, it's like Prius is his God, and he didn't stop about it, and I was like, oh, great, this is going to be the whole ride. And and Lance doesn't stop talking. 3 days with him on the road, never stops talking, and puts the heat up on gazillion, because he's freezing, and from the south, he's like a frigid old man, freezing from the south of Georgia, and I'm like burning up the whole time, listening to him speak, not stop talking as I burn. Like, he has got the gift of gab, okay? So as soon as the beginning of the car ride, it's like 20 minutes in, and he's already talked to me. He's already made me guess He's already made me guess the world record for the longest someone has driven a Prius without getting gas. And so I was like, you can listen to podcasts too, or music. And he goes, "Oh, I like to talk." And I did pretty well. I tolerated him pretty well, you know. Because he's got a lot of good qualities, and that's why you take the good with the bad. It's about being present. It's not really bad. Everyone has their own quirks, and he owns them. And that's what I learned from him on this 3-day trip is he owns his stuff, and I love that about him. And he accepts his stuff. And the thing is that I learned after we'd both been in comedy a while, him longer than me. We both went to Georgetown. He's a year older than me. Crazy. We both went to Georgetown. And we both have OCD. And not only that, we've both gone to the same therapist for OCD in New York. And we never even knew it. I can't even believe it. It's wild. The amount of connection that I didn't even know my therapist had another comedian who I don't see this therapist anymore. But he's great. I didn't know he had another comedian client. I mean, he could have told me I think I was the original. I'm not going to lie. Because when I first got him, when I first went to my OCD therapist, the guy who really nailed, really worked with him the first time 10 years ago after I got the diagnosis, he was like, wow, I mean, you're a comedian and you do this. Like some people, you're like a high performing OCD person. Some people, you're basically, you're going out and performing on stage, which is some of the people's like biggest fears in the whole world. Most people that he sees with OCD would never do that, even come close to doing that. They're having trouble, getting out of their house. And so I'm like, wow, there's more people out there than I thought doing this. And so Lance is one of those people. And what I learned from Lance is, he went on the stage one night and there was speakers on the stage, and there was you have to stand. The host has to stand in between the speakers. And the speakers are pretty narrow. And he stood to the left of the whole thing. He didn't even stand in the middle of the speakers. And, and I asked him why, I think. And it was because he has like sensitivity over his ears. And he's scared. Some of his OCD is fear of losing his hearing. And I'll talk to him more about this maybe on a future version of the podcast. And so fear of losing his hearing, fear that he won't be able to hear laughs. And so he just operated from another portion of the stage and did his thing. And it's like, he's like, yeah, as long as you're funny, kill it, do your thing. Nobody cares, stand to the side of the stage and do well. No one's going to give a F. And with me, when I am kind of like, oh, there are many performances I have where my mouth feels like cement and I'm worried about it and it makes me, it's like, own it. Whatever you have to do to make that happen, whether it's a lozenge, whether it's telling the crowd, whether it's drowning yourself in water, whether it's, whatever it is, just own it and accept it. That's the thing you have. Whatever makes it work for you, just do it. You go up and do your thing. And also, as I was talking to him, it's just kind of a do it your way kind of thing, sometimes I feel weird about sometimes there's no stool on stage, so I can't put any water, and I feel weird. I'm like bringing a stool up there because, it's not the way the host wants it. And I feel weird. I'm like, I'm going to be judged for being weird for like, whatever, having a lozenge on stage and stuff. And no, do your thing. Whatever works for you. As long as you do well, you can kind of do what you want up there. So he inspired me that way. And he inspired me in many ways. And the other thing that he did was I'm very convinced that my OCD, because it's mouth related and I perform stand-up comedy, is particularly cursed. That like, because I have a dry mouth and the very thing that is also my talent is the same as my weakness. So it's particularly cursed for me rather than someone who, let's say, obsessively has to count, has to make sure numbers are perfect before they leave the house or something like that. And he was like, no, that's your OCD talking. You think yours is bigger than everyone else's because you're, and that's what OCD does. It convinces you it's the most important thing in the world. It's very good at that. And it attaches to the thing that you value the most. And the thing I value the most is good communication, strong, being funny and being sharp witted. And of course, it would attach to make it. Of course, it would attack that part of me by making it seemingly harder for me to speak and making me overthink that. And that's what it does. It's so powerful. And so that was really, he knows more about OCD than some of the therapists that I have seen in my life. And I just like thank him. And I'm so thankful for that kismet moment I had with him in the car. Okay, let's start with hard, weird, scary, stupid here, where we mention what's hard, what's weird, what's scary, what's been stupid. This is from the Comedy Bible by Judy Carter. Kudos to Carter. She came up with this device for generating sort of material when you need to generate comedic material. So this one, it's hard, and it's weird. And it's maybe a stupid. It's kind of a combo of all. I might have told my therapist that I like him, and like so. The thing is that I have some attraction to my therapist, and I wasn't necessarily gonna say anything about that to him. But I'm a little dangerous when I'm in a good mood. And I mean, I wasn't just, listen, I've never had a therapist that is kind of younger male and attractive and good looking. And, he has this deep voice and he's empathetic and he's smart and, and he's my type. This is a weird combo. I didn't know this was going to happen, necessarily. I think when I saw him first over Zoom, I was like pleasantly surprised by, oh, he's, where was it? Probably June. I was like, okay, interesting. He's kind of hot, but it was still over Zoom. But then once we started meeting in person, and I was just like, oh, like this person is like daddy. This is daddy. And, he's got these glasses and he's really always listening. I mean, some therapists, they're like, did you get that? He always listens, keeps you on track. And that's all it takes. No, but he's always listens. But he's just really, anyway. And there have been times in session when I've just gotten aroused. And though that's been kind of, I get a little distracted. Like I'll just be talking and I'll just lose it. I'll lose it. And I'm like, okay, this is an issue. This is a thing. And I was in a good mood earlier this month, the middle of the month. And we started talking about something. He was like, had a particularly, he was insightful on something. He was empathetic and we were vibing in that way. And I started getting aroused. And I was like, damn. And I looked over to the side. I looked away. I was like, what do I do about this? And I was quiet for a minute because I was distracted. And I'm like, and then he looks at me and he was like, where did your mind go just now? And I'm like, damn. I grew up in in this sense of like learning about therapy. I understand a little bit the principles of transference, that you can develop feelings for your therapist. I also understand a second principle, which is therapy is about working on maybe the stuff you don't want to say. And so in that moment, feeling particularly good about, I was torn. I was like, do I bring this up? Do I not bring this up? And I decided, you know what? Screw it. Let's just go. This is about learning about yourself in this space. And I obviously it's affecting my work that I do in here a little bit. So I told him, and I just want to let him know because like sometimes it's distracting, and let him know. And he's like, "Thanks for telling me." And it turns out, it's happened to him sometimes. And then he was like, "Okay, well, we're out of time, unfortunately. So we're gonna let's pick this up in the next one." Just kidding. But kind of like I told him, it was like, well, I want you to know because like I just don't want it to affect the work that you do with me, and I want you to understand. Like, I almost was like, I want you to understand this is happening, so that like I don't want to put you in a weird position, and so that and I think I also said that like the point of like maybe saying it, seeing so that it would like dissipate over time. So if I say it, like maybe it will go away. I said, does it affect the work that he would do with me? He said, no, like it doesn't. Just be careful, watch out for if you potentially start blaming me for things in your life, that would be some transference. So watch out for that. And I was like, oh, I don't think that's going to happen. He was like, you'd be surprised, apparently, which makes sense. I mean, if you start to develop feelings for someone and you feel like they are really in your life in some form of asymmetrical relationship, then I guess you could start to feel that they're playing a bigger role in your life than you think, and you start like blaming them for certain things. So that's, I guess, the thing to keep track of. But then he did, and then I was like red in the face. Of course, I was stuttering, I was stammering, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know. Of course, in my dreams, I was like, he was going to be like, "Yeah, I have feelings for you too." That was really my dream. My dream of bringing this up, to be completely real with everybody, was that after it would happen, he would be like, "I also have feelings for you," and then we could stop having this relationship, and that we could be together. And there's a lot of obstacles to that, I think. First of all, he's not gay. This is probably the biggest obstacle to this relationship. I don't think he's gay at all, guys. Whenever I bring up stories about being gay, he's like, "Oh, interesting. What is that? Tell me more about that." Like, I think he barely knows what a bottom is himself. Like, I don't think but still, part of me, the crazy thing is like, I think that I'm gonna get a message from him one day, being like, I want to let you know I also have feelings for you, which he knows too much to have feelings for me. He has been through seeing me having all of these up and down. You view these people as patients. Like I've expressed a lot of difficulty in my life recently. At the very least, he's not going to be like, "This man seems very ready for a relationship with me." But he does kind of speak like, "Hello, it's good to see you. How are you, Keenan? How are you doing today? Tell me more about that." And then, but after me being red in the face for like a minute, he was like, "Okay, well, I just do want to acknowledge that we just have 5 minutes left, so we could work on other things now." And I was like, "Oh," and then I was like, "Oh, I thought we were gonna keep talking about this forever." So, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Ba-ba-dee boop, ba-ba-dee ba-da boop, beep-a-dee bow. My dad, I sat down over Christmas. My dad is like, the weirdest thing is I've having the roughest year sort of mental health wise I've had since my 20s, definitely, and in 2024. And I've been in communication with my dad over it, and he seems to think that I should go into some kind of adult mental institution. And I'm like, "Dad, they're not going to do anything for me, and that's like not a thing. Like, that's like not really a thing." He's like, "Well, because his someone in his family, younger person in his wife's family, when they were younger, went in for anxiety, did like a special program for anxiety when he was a teenager." And it's like, they're for adults. I get help with OCD. They're not gonna. I'm not in the state where an inpatient facility is gonna do anything for me. I'm doing work on myself all the time. So, but he keeps like sending me. He's like, "It's worth a try." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that's not a thing." It's not really the right way to help. He keeps being like, look, why not? Look it up. I'm like, "Yes, I'm gonna check myself into an institution," and they're gonna be like, "What are we doing for you exactly?" And so I think he's trying to help, but it's just kind of a weird way. And then we sat down over Christmas, and you know, uh, we don't talk a lot face to face because he lives in now half the year he lives in Florida now. Then he lives in Connecticut the rest of the year. We don't see each other that much. We do see each other here and there, and I felt like I needed to talk to him because I need to explain to my family what my OCD is. It doesn't feel validated by all members of my family. They don't really understand it. OCD is hard to understand in general. So I can't completely fix that. I try to communicate it. It's a little bit hard because my brother has an actual physical disability. He has muscular dystrophy. And he grew up with muscular dystrophy, which is where, you're just all of your muscles, you can't build regular muscle like anyone else at this point. And it's a long, story. It's a long path. It's a big, thing in my family. Been a huge obstacle for my brother in his whole life that he has overcome successfully, but it's now as he's in his 40s and as he got into his late 30s, it's degenerated. It's a degenerative disease. And so his muscles are getting much weaker. In the past 5 years, past only the few years, he went from walking without assistance, probably 5 years ago when he was about 35, to using a cane, to slowly, using a cane, having trouble getting up out of a chair, and to, in public events, using a scooter. And he does the best he can. He's an amazing father, and he's an amazing advocate for muscular dystrophy because he continues to live his life to the fullest, regardless of his circumstance. He doesn't let it stop him. He has a great job. He's a great manager at work. He's doing all these, like, now he's speaking around the country, doing as a speaker at healthcare events and conferences. Maybe it's run by a pharmaceutical company or a research group to talk about advances and to talk about the current state of people with Becker's or Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. He is really a great resource. But I think my family is so focused on sometimes he's had all these physical problems that are very visible to the eye. And I think I didn't have problems growing up, but I have had mental health problems in my 20s and 30s, especially more honest about it now. And I think it's a hidden thing that is just not understood. And so I don't really get the empathy that I think it's just harder to give me empathy, I think. And I think no one in the family was ready to give me empathy because I was like a star sort of child growing up. I was sort of like very successful academically and athletically growing up. And so no one's used to viewing me as someone who needs help. And, and so I think it's a thing that family doesn't know how to deal with. And I'm trying to educate them. So I got my brother a gift over Christmas as a book. And it was a book. It's Maria Bamford's book, which is essentially about her. It's called I will join your cult. It's called like I will join your cult. What is it? Maria Bamford, who's one of the best comedians and very quirky. Sure, I'll join your cult. It's called, and it's kind of essential. It's a memoir of mental illness and the quest to belong anywhere. But it really, and I started reading it. And it's really about her OCD. So I gave it to my brother, and I gave it to my dad. I told my dad to read it. Didn't give him as a gift. I was like, Dad, buy this. But I gave it to my brother, and it's like, enjoy this. But part of me is like, I need to educate them about OCD, and this is a good way to do it because I relate to. They can read about Maria writing, and it's kind of my experience. So I'm give them gifts that are selfish. Here's a gift to learn about me. So that's what I did. But I sat down with my dad. All's that to say, I sat down with my dad, probably between the meal and dessert, in the living room, in the den couch around the tree, after the little kids had opened presents, and I was telling him what's going on because he's trying to say like, oh, Keenan, it's just really worried about, you gotta have a little, and he puts his fingers together, you gotta make a little money. Rubs his thumb with his two index fingers, it's, I worry about you as a father. And as a father, he always repeats. You know, fathers just repeat the same mantras. It's they're only on a loop. At least they're just on a loop. They don't know how to be creative, or on the spot. He goes, you know, as a father, you're only as happy as your least happy son. He goes, as a father, you're only as happy as your least happy child. And it's like, well, that doesn't feel so good. So I'm your least happy child. And I don't even know. It's just kind of a platitude. But he says, like, you know, if comedy's, you know, not working out, you need to, what's your career? What's your career going to be? And the thing the reason why that's discouraging is because comedy is my career. And we knew, and I feel like he accepted this a year or two ago when I was more visibly feeling more confident about it. And this year, as it's been a little more of a struggle, this is the year of, like, I thought I was going to make it. And I actually took a step back in some ways, where it feels like, oh, you know, it felt like I was more of a mess than ever. It's the year where I thought I was going to make it, and I was realized that I was more of a mess than ever. And that's when he's been like, this is not your career. This is not a career. This is not working. Meanwhile, it's my OCD that's taking me down. And so it doesn't really help for someone to be like, you need to change, when it's like, well, I'm not going to let this thing beat me. This is what OCD is. It wants to take me down. So it's like I tried to explain to him, I was like, this is the career. This is it. There is no other career. You know, this is the career that chose me. Art. I didn't choose necessarily to be an artist. Being an artist chose me. Like, this is what my calling is. I didn't plan it. And, you know, I can't see it any other way at this point. Like, this is who I am. This is fundamentally who I am, being a comedian. And I explained that to, you know, and this is what happened in my life. I'll tell you guys, it's kind of like, I was working as a journalist in my 20s. And that wasn't, you know, I was experiencing a lot of dissatisfaction. And once I went into, dedicating more close, I started an improv comedy in my 20s, which I felt more alive than ever. And then once I started doing stand-up, I really felt like I was coming into my own, and felt like I found my people, and felt like I found the thing. And I pursued it ever since. And then, you know, as you go on with comedy, you know, you realize, like, in order to really get good at it, you have to treat it like a career. In the beginning, you're like, I have to do 4 or 5 open mics a week. So that was probably 2015 to 2019 to 2020. I was like, you know, make sure you do 4 open mics a week at least. 3 in the beginning, then turns to 4, and then you're doing shows. Just get up like 3-4 times a week at least. And then it's like, well, if you want to make it your career, you have to treat it like a career, and that's the only way it's going to be a career. So it's the amount of hours you spend, and, you know, it's telling people that it's your career. If you tell people it's a hobby, it'll be a hobby. And so that's been my life. And even if it doesn't pay all the bills, it's still my career. And so I'm just trying to, like, explaining that to him, and I think he got it. But so that was positive. However, dads don't get him. Stuff doesn't stick. It's like, I don't know if it'll stick in his head, because he'll talk to someone else and be influenced, and maybe he'll talk to his wife or a friend of his, be like, he needs another job. He's not funny. I saw he has a friend once that saw me do stand up like a bringer show for an audition show at New York Comedy Club, and I just started, and I saw his friend at my dad's 80th birthday a year and a half ago. And my friend, he's kind of he's older at this point, but we're talking about my comedy, and he was like, I hope you're good. I hope he's good. We saw you that one time in New York. Nothing was funny. Nothing. No. So anyway, all right, on to the next. This episode of Keenan's podcast is brought to you by the trees left over on the sidewalks by families who had a great Christmas, and they're actually organized so they know they have to get it out of their house before the new year. And they're healthy people. It's brought to you by healthy families who leave over their leftovers when they're still good. Did you know you could just take that tree and bring it back into your home and you can have a little bit of a late Christmas, but if you couldn't afford a Christmas tree, there you go. You've got the Seigelman's tree. They live on the Upper West Side. They have 2 kids and a dog, and their house is worth $3 million on Zillow. And their tree's still fresh because they took good care of it. So go to 83rd and Amsterdam Ave on the Upper West Side to pick up the Seigelman's tree by a trash can. Or if you don't have a car, just sit there, get on your knees, and smell it. It'll remind you of your childhood when your mom used to spank you over the ass with a wooden spoon. Merry Christmas, everybody. Now, finally, closing out the final section of my podcast of the year on the final day of the year. I've moved into December 31st and finish recording on the 30th. So as we close out, these are the last jokes I want to share with you of the year. They're just premises, really. It's like this stuff that could end up in my stand-up. Maybe it doesn't. I think it's interesting that dentists don't have a recommendation for the mouth, for the toothpaste you should use. You know, they're just like, oh, whatever you want, whatever you use is fine. Whatever you want to use is no big deal. You know? Oh, really? It's no big deal? It doesn't matter at all? Is that not because you're in bed with Big Colgate and Big Crest? Doesn't matter. You have no recommendation at all. Your main job is the teeth. This is all you do. You don't even do gums. You send us to other people for gums, something called an endodontist. You can't even take out a wisdom tooth. You send us to an oral surgeon. There's something else called an orthodontist to fix to fix the straightness of your teeth. You don't even do tooth orientation and alignment. Your job is to keep the teeth white. The mouth is so small. You can't even take ownership over your own domain. You cede it to other people. We need a mouth doc. You can't even be a mouth doctor? The tongue. You ask about the tongue. I'm not sure. Is there a tongue doctor? No. There's not even a tongue doctor, by the way. No specialist for the tongue. Where is the otolaryngologist? Where is the sublinguologist? Doesn't exist. Oh, but there's a gum specialist. Oh, what makes the gum so special? Where's the tongue guy? Ridiculous. The mouth is so small. You know, general practitioners in charge of your whole body. Can't even be in charge of your own domain. The dentist. Oh, I don't know anything about breath. That's not, my job is only the teeth. Well, what do you mean? Your job is to look at cavities and take them out. What do you mean? What about the gums? I'll send you somewhere else. Anyway, toothpaste, we can't recommend a toothpaste. No, anything you want, really. What if you went to the psychiatrist and they were like, okay, yeah, just take an SSRI. We don't care which one. No, but your job is to give us the correct, a special one, is correct SSRI. What am I paying you for? No, any one doesn't matter. We can't decide. They're all similar. One could do one thing, one could do the other. No big deal. Whatever you want. Same with the dentist. Whatever toothpaste you want. No, each one will probably matter. They're a little different. One has baking soda. One is a whitening agent. One doesn't. Why does it not matter? Go to the dermatologist. Any soap will do. What? Some soap makes my skin feel so dry and feels like I'm itching everywhere. What do you mean any soap will do? Dentist, any toothpaste will do. Be a master of your own domain. Ridiculous. I sound like Jim Gaffigan. Ridiculous. I have a new app idea. That's the second premise I have today. My new app idea is something called Wrister. Wrister. You got it. Like the thing on, like muñeca in Spanish, the thing that's connecting your hand to your forearm. Okay? And this app is the following, because you use Grindr, you could use Tinder nowadays, very sexual. Even the straights are getting into sexual. They're all about, even a girl is probably like, show me that dick. Let me see that dick. On one of the apps or something, pussy pick. And, but this is mostly for gay men. Grindr, the problem is people will be like, they'll be chatting and they'll be like, send me pics. So someone will send a pic of a private part, send it back, but no one leaves the house because we're lazy now. And people don't actually leave. People used to actually go out, use these apps and see each other and meet each other easily. When I first started using Grindr, it was all about meeting up. Even before, when I first started using Grindr, you don't send a dick pic before you necessarily met up. I was like, I don't do that. I don't send it was like 2013. I'm not sending a photo of I don't even take a photo of my dick, of my penis. Like, I'm not sending that on the internet either. You're a cute guy. I'm cute. Let's meet up. You're really cute. Let's meet up. By the way, speaking of Christmas, personal opinion, side note to the joke. I like not knowing what the dong looks like before you see it. I like the surprise. What? I talk about a Christmas gift. Oh my God, open it up. It could be like, Jesus, wow, that's like Hot Wheels, Legos, Hess Truck, My Little Pony all in one. Yeah, it could be a dud, but it's usually not. Most people have especially gay men for some reason, they're all huge. What the hell is going on? I'm like, golly. Anyway, but I like a surprise. It's sexy. It's fun. Surprise is underrated. We don't need to know everything before we do it. Anyway, we need an app called Wrister, and the app called Wrister, because no one's meeting each other anymore. Back in the day, Grindr, we used to meet each other. You used to actually see, hi, how are you? Send me you're really cute. What are you doing later? Let's meet up. Boom, boom, boom. It's fun. They're cute. It's fun. Okay, we're out of there and it's done. Now it's like, send me a pic. Okay, I'm going to go around and look for someone else, shop around maybe a little more. Also, I'm on Grindr, but I'm not going to leave my house anymore. It's gotten so convenient where it's like people don't even leave their house. So Wrister is an app where because you could just jerk off by yourself. Wrister is an app where you cut off your wrist. It's a service that cuts off your wrist. You lost your wrist. Your wrist has been sawed off. That is the app. Everyone's wrist has been sawed off, and only those people can join the app. And then they're forced to leave the house because they can't jerk off. So it's an app called Wrister. You sign up. You have to get your wrist sawed off. You can't jerk off anymore, and it's the best way to still meet in person. Wrister. That's going to be the app where people just don't meet up enough in person. And if you want to meet up in person these days, you're going to have to cut your wrist off. That's it. That's going to be the best app of 2026. Wrister. Leave the house with Wrister. The best way to leave your house and have sex in 2025 is by joining Wrister. Otherwise, you'll just stay home. All right. That was not perfect, but I liked it. And so, a little chaotic, this podcast. Listen, I'm going to close out this podcast by saying that a couple things. One, I am very proud that I started this podcast this year, as someone who has struggled with, I don't know, just getting, that a lot of the issue is like I have fear that I won't be able to speak, because, and it's come up this year. I have fear that I won't be able to be my best self. Like, getting the words out is key to me being funny. And then when and I'm fun when I'm in the moment and I'm not thinking about it. But when I overthink it and I focus on my mouth and I worry about it and I think, oh no, maybe I'm not going to have saliva, I was talking with Lance in the car, the comedian I rode with the Delaware, and he was talking the whole time, and I was like, can we not talk? I have to save some. I want to make sure I can speak on the stage, and he's like, you want to save your saliva? I've never even heard of that. And I was like, yeah, I got to save my saliva. So that became a thing for the rest of the trip where I'm trying to save my saliva, which is ridiculous. With OCD, it's like, no, lean into it. You know what? You want to really grow from this? Do an exposure. An exposure, part of cognitive behavioral therapy is to make your mouth really dry and then go up on stage. It's to say, like, I'm going to keep talking and I'm going to completely run out of spit. I'm going to talk the whole way up, and then I'm going to have to keep talking on stage rather than me being like, no, I'm scared. I'm going to run. I'm not, it's a thing. I'm not going to talk. And then I'm going to save it for the stage. And that just enables your mind to think that it's a real thing. So this is all about not saving my spit, not having that attitude. I can't speak. The point is that I can do it. And this podcast is proof in pudding that I can do it. And that's what we're working towards. We're not there yet. I'm trying to change my mind, trying to change my mindset from something that's not helping to something that's working. From I can't do it to it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to do it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to, if I can get with you every week, that's way better, because this makes me very happy to do this podcast. And once I get into it, it's not easy. The editing takes time. There's a bit of editing that gets into it. It takes hours. And getting on a consistent schedule when you have other things to do and, your mind goes into, well, oh God, that's going to take so long. I'm not going to do it. Then you don't do it. But then you don't grow. And this podcast is changing. It's all about changing my mind. That's what cognitive behavioral therapy is, changing the brain. Changing your brain. Getting some wins under your belt. And it's not been perfect. This will be episode number 5, closing out the year. And I'm just thanking you guys for being here on this journey with me. It means a lot to me. If you get a chance, please rate and review. I don't have a single review yet. Please come see me perform. I'll be at QED Queens doing Keenan, Steiner, and Friends with some great comedians, including the comic I'm talking about who I took that car ride with, who's very fun, Lance Weiss, and it'll be some other great comedians at QED Queens Thursday night, 7:30. I'll be at the Comedy Shop in the West Village, Monday, January 6th. And some other shows coming up too. Probably a Mexico thing coming soon. I have big plans. This has been a podcast by the funniest comedian you know. And can I say it? Yes, I can. Have a good year, everybody. Happy 2025. I love you all, and I know you love me. Bye-bye.